Hey everyone, welcome to Facebook Live, Kuck Baxter Immigration this Friday, January 3rd, 2020. Happy New Year to everyone, and I am Danielle Claffey, and I'm an attorney here with Kuck Baxter Immigration, and today I'm just going to talk about a few hot topics for starting out 2020, a couple of things that are going on with business immigration, and also some breaking news on the immigration court front, in particular at 401 West Peachtree Street, which is known as the new court. For anybody that's in removal proceedings and has court hearings to attend or has a hearing notice coming up for a first court appearance where they're not detained, that would require appearance at that new court. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm also going to look out for any questions that come up. So of course, if anything does come up, I'm going to be looking out for them here. Feel free to post any questions. If you post any after, of course, then I will do my best to answer them as they come in and throughout, okay? So first, what I want to talk about is business immigration and what's going on in the world of business immigration, what our current administration is considering, and what might be coming up this year. So as we all know, one of the first things that's super important to know about, not just with business immigration, but actually with immigration in general, are filing fees. So we've known for a couple of months now that USCIS is talking about proposed increases in filing fees, not just your typical increases that we've seen in the past, but really significant, overwhelming increases to filing fees. We know that's on the horizon for naturalization applications. So of course, we're encouraging any of our current clients or new clients that come to see us to really try to file your naturalization if you're eligible as soon as possible before that fee increase, because it is going to go up several $100s from what we understand. On the business immigration side of things, one of the biggest proposals for fee increase is on the H1B side of things. They're now talking about a proposal that would increase the H1B filing fees upwards of 22%. So that is a significant fee increase, really something to consider as we're obviously entering our 2020 season of the H1B lottery. They're also talking about for employers who have over 50% of their employees that are H1B employees, they're gonna propose a fee increase of $4,000 when filing extensions for companies that employ the requisite number of individuals in excess of. So those are really some significant considerations in terms of filing fees for employers going into this new season, which also then, of course, brings me into how the H1B lottery season is going to change starting in 2020. So, of course, it was talked about for a while, and now it is officially being implemented. The way that it's going to change is that in years past, of course, the H1B lottery system always works such that all of the petitions would get filed that first week of April, by April 1 or whatever the specific designated date is in that first week of April. And then depending on how many petitions were received, they would all go into the lottery system, and then you would find out whether the petition was selected or not, and either receive a receipt notice in the coming weeks or, of course, a rejection, receiving the package back. How they are now going to change that is the new lottery system. What it will mean is that they're first just going to open up the lottery for anybody to submit a petition and only pay $10, okay? So any employer or candidate that thinks they have a viable candidate for an H1B petition will now be eligible to actually just enter into the lottery system by only having to pay $10. If they then get selected in the lottery, then the full petition actually gets filed and, of course, receipted in. And so what we're concerned about with that is how much the numbers are going to increase in terms of how many H1B petitions are simply just going to be entered into the lottery just to see if they get selected, and what that's actually going to do to the numbers, and is it going to double, triple the number of H1B petitions that are filed or attempted to be filed. So, only time will tell as to how that's all going to pan out, but that's something to be aware of in this upcoming season. So something else that I want to talk about are work authorization for H4 dependents of H1B employees. So of course, H4s have been eligible for work authorization since 2015. There is a new proposal right now on the horizon which is talking about revoking or canceling work authorization for H4 dependents. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen yet, but certainly keep a lookout. And obviously what we're concerned about most is if that happens, not only losing out on work authorization for H4 dependents who want to be able to be employed in the United States and work, but how that's also going to affect employers, job prospects, recruitment efforts for eligible candidates, H1B candidates, and so on, who then realize that it's such a detriment to their dependent not to be able to have this work authorization that they may then not look to come into the United States to seek an H1B petition or try to remain in the United States, after completion of, let's say, STEM OPT or OPT or so on. So again, we're going to have to see how, if that does come to be, how that's going to affect employers in the U.S., H1Bs, our economy, and so on. So we'll have to see what happens there. Another thing I want to talk about, which is actually a hybrid between business immigration as well as family-based, is really, it comes down to DACA and what's going to happen with DACA this year. Of course, we know oral argument happened before the Supreme Court this past November. The way it looks right now is that we're anticipating and expecting a decision from the Supreme Court on whether DACA will continue or not by July, is what we anticipate. And so obviously that's going to have a significant impact on the livelihood of those who currently hold DACA, employers who employ DACA recipients, and so on. So again, it's just something to keep an eye on. That's probably one of the most important, if not the most important, items on the agenda for 2020 and what's to come. Another thing I want to talk about is OPT. So for those of you who may or may not be familiar, OPT is, again, optional practical training. And now several years ago at this point, when STEM OPT was passed, STEM OPT is allowing an additional 24 months on top of the initial 12 months of OPT, and which is, just for employment authorization post-graduation in the United States. So STEM OPT originally was only for an additional 17 months, but then USCIS allowed it to be extended for a full 24 months, giving somebody with STEM OPT eligibility a full 3 years of work authorization. Well, then there was a lawsuit that was filed trying to actually limit that, because the lawsuit argued that it precluded U.S. workers from being eligible for jobs and jobs being taken away, and then the system was revamped and it had to go through a proper comment and so on, and then it was implemented again. So then STEM OPT was fined for that additional 24 months, but now that lawsuit has again been revived, and there's a renewed effort to again try to do away with the STEM OPT program, which, if that happens, of course, that would again, I would imagine, drastically impact our economy, H1B prospects for STEM OPT employees to seek out lawful permanent residence in the U.S. to continue to work for their employers, when out of school after graduation from undergrad degrees or master's degrees. And again, you can see how this would significantly impact our economy in the U.S. So again, we're going to have to wait and see what comes out of the Washington, D.C. District Court in terms of that WashTech case and STEM OPT. Another thing I want to talk on and touch on, because I've been dealing with this quite a bit over the last few months, is H1B federal court litigation. There's been a lot of ongoing significant litigation in that regard. Particularly what we're dealing with is the 2018 memo that came out by USCIS, which essentially authorized shortened validity periods to H1Bs, significant denials in terms of specialty occupations, the new itinerary rule to have to be able to show a specific itinerary for H1Bs in order to elicit an H1B approval, as well as specific work rules and showing that the person is actively working, active contracts, particularly for third-party work sites, things like that. So there's been a significant amount of litigation in that regard, and cases are ongoing. There's a lot of new case law coming out of Washington, D.C. District Court, but not only Washington, D.C. anymore. There's quite a bit of litigation across the country in terms of really challenging these rules that clearly are what's called ultra-virus, or outside of the limitations of the regulations, of the statutory reading of the law, and what is permitted and what's not permitted, and clearly USCIS is violating the terms of what it means to be eligible for an H1B. So again, as we receive some big decisions on those fronts, of course, we will notify our business immigration community. And finally, what I want to talk about is what we have only just received just in the last hour, less than an hour ago. So this is going to be super important for our family-based clients, removal clients, and so on. So as you know, again, as I mentioned initially, the immigration court, we now of course have two immigration courts in Atlanta. So we have what we refer to as the old immigration court, which handles all of the detained cases for individuals who are detained. And then we have the new immigration court for all of those who are not detained. That's the court that exists at 401 West Peachtree Street. So I was actually there just this morning for court. I was scheduled for a what's called a merit hearing this morning, which is when you have your full day in court where you present your evidence and your testimony and so on. Of course, there's a lot of preparation that's involved. We have clients sometimes coming from a long way. This morning, it was a 2.5 hour drive for my clients for us to show up this morning to essentially an empty room. And then I asked the clerk and was curious about what actually happened with the case. Is the case going? Because it still shows active in the system and scheduled for this morning. And she looked at me like I had no idea what I was talking about, looked it up in the system and said, oh yeah, I see this person's name in the system. Yeah, court's not happening. The entire docket's been canceled. But of course, no notification whatsoever. No notification yesterday or the day before. We have no idea when it was canceled, when we would have been notified. And only a few hours later then we actually received notification from the court administrator that several hearings in the month of January, so from January the 6th through January 31st of 2020, many hearings are set to be canceled. Now we don't know if that means master hearings, if that is merit hearings, both. All of them, some of them, we have no idea. The only thing we've been informed is that many of them are going to be canceled. We're going to receive notification, and the system, which is the 800 number that you call, should be updated by 3 p.m. today, so just in 45 minutes or so, and that we will also be receiving, hopefully, phone calls from the court to notify us of cancellations for the most immediate hearings that are coming up this coming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what have you. So, that really is breaking news for anybody watching this that may be scheduled for court in the month of January at the new court at 401 West Peachtree Street. Make sure that you try to contact the court, that you check the 800 number. Again, it's 800-898-7180. And then following the prompts to check your own court date to see what's happening with it, because there's a very good chance that court may not be happening at all. So that's really important to know. As we know, yesterday, a couple of our attorneys were down there and there was a line down the hallway and out the door because so many individuals showed up for court dates that were not actually happening at all but hadn't received any notice that they had been canceled. So again, that's super important. If you have any questions at all, you have a court hearing notice, you're scheduled for court, you don't know what's going to happen, you're not sure, please make an appointment with an attorney. Come into our office and please come in and make an appointment. We're English speaking, of course, as well as fully Spanish speaking, Arabic. I have several different languages that we can accommodate. So feel free to make an appointment with myself or any one of my partners or other attorneys in the office. We're all here to help. So feel free to ask your questions. Again, I'll see if anybody has questions to ask on here, and I'm going to try to take a look here and see if there are any questions. And if there are, then I will be happy to answer them. I don't see any right now, but I'm going to continue monitoring this for the next several hours. So if any questions do come up, I'll do my best to answer them. If you want to ask me anything separately or privately or schedule that appointment, feel free to call my number directly. It's 404-949-8151, or send me an email at dclaffey@immigration.net. So it's DCLA, F as in Frank, EY @immigration.net. So everyone take care, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.